Pradibodhidam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gradhidam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaidam Vradavarshinim Bhagavadim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvam Anusantadhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshinim Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marudastunyandi Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sankapada Panishadaihi Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavasthita Tadgatena Manasa Pasyandi Yam Yogino Yasyandam Navidusura Suraganaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha. We already discussed something very important about Karma Yoga in the 48th verse. We already discussed the psychology of Karma Yoga in the 48th verse. Yogastha Kuru Karmani Sangam Tektva Dharanjaya Siddhya Siddhyo Samo Bhutva Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. The same topic is further expanded in the coming verses. The 49th verse is Durena hi avaram karma buddhi yoga dhananjaya buddho sharanam anvicha kripanaha phalahetavaka. So, Lord Krishna is asking Arjuna, calling upon his disciple. Now, he says, working with desire, with a lot of selfish motive, selfish attachment, a kind of obsession for the results of work. It is inferior, he says. It is inferior. We'll find out why it is called inferior. To somebody who works, who does the same work with a mind which is undisturbed by any thought of selfish achievements or selfish results. Therefore, you should take refuge in performing Karma Yoga with evenness of mind. You know, Yogastha Kuru Karmani Sangam Tektva Dhananjaya Siddhya Siddhyo Samo Bhutva Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. Samatvam actually means equanimity of mind. And equanimity of mind also implies serenity, tranquility and peace. Because the mind becomes disturbed when it moves, when it thinks of the consequences, and also when we connect the consequences or the results with our own selfish motive, then mind becomes like a stormy ocean. Then we become anxious. So anxiety, worry, concerned. This may be totally and absolutely uncalled for, unnecessary. Still, you can find this happening. For example, suppose you are driving in the freeway, you are going to the airport, and you are caught in a traffic jam, and you are sitting in a car. In fact, there are 100 cars ahead of you, before you, and also behind you. So you can't really move. But still sitting in the car, knowing fully well that being too much worried, too much of worry and anxiety will not help you to reach the airport 1 minute earlier. But still we become worried. So one can become worried and anxious even without any benefit. And we know it is going to be of no use worrying about. Because worry cannot help you to reach the airport 1 minute earlier. You have to go through this problem. The traffic will not clear, even when you worry yourself to death. But anxiety increases. Diabetes, if you are a diabetic patient, it is very harmful. If you are suffering from hypertension, it's still more harmful. Still, mind can really create problems. So, Lord Krishna says, therefore, you take refuge in this ideal of karma yoga. Now, this is possible for anyone, not necessarily in spiritual activities. In fact, one of the most interesting aspects of the teachings of Gita is it helps you to spiritualize the secular activities. How to perform secular activities. Secular means normally certain actions and activities that we consider to have no connection with spirituality. For example, driving or working in your office. Normally we consider these activities are distinct and different from spiritual activities, by which we normally mean going to a temple or a church or praying or reading scriptures. That is spiritual. And working in the office is secular, not spiritual. But what Lord Krishna teaches is how to establish a connection, a connecting bridge between the secular and the spiritual, so that even while performing secular activities, you can have the serenity of mind, the total freedom from anxiety that we normally experience when we engage in spiritual activities. So we can spiritualize the secular. When we take refuge in this samatvam yoga uchyate, the 48th verse. So siddhya siddhyo samobhuta. Siddhi means getting the expected result. Asiddhi means the opposite of it. Maybe you get the opposite result. Now, as I mentioned earlier, it doesn't imply indifference. It doesn't imply negligence or I won't care for what I'm doing, the results. No, not that attitude, actually. We are going to make that point clear in the coming verses. Now, if you really do your work without much worry, without much selfish connection with our own beneficial results, then we will be free from anxiety, worry, and we will enjoy equanimity of mind and tranquility. And not only that, and much more important, you will be able to go deeper into your own inner resources. Normally, when we work, any kind of work, we are able to use only maybe 20 or 30% of our real potential. And it's a fact. We have much more resources hidden within us than what we are actually able to make use of. So when we work with so much of anxiety, with so much of worry, so much of obsession and attachment, then we are actually blocking the utilization of our real potential. Many of the inner resources, intellectual resources, the ability to do more, all will be blocked when we do work with a lot of anxiety, because a mental block is created. On the other hand, if you are totally free from any kind of selfish involvement or obsession, what happens is the infinite resources of the inner mind are available for us to make proper use of. And for that is the secret of the success of the great men and women who became great, who accomplished great things by practicing karma yoga. When karma is done without this thought of yoga, then it actually becomes karma yoga. Yoga in Sanskrit means disease. People, oh, I can't keep quiet for a minute. I have to be always active. I am a very efficient person. This is often, it comes in like a boastful, like a boast. Actually, it is not a compliment for anyone to say, well, I cannot keep quiet for a minute. I should be always active. In fact, the ability to be active and also the ability to remain withdrawn from action, both are important. Because without this detachment, without this practice of yoga, we won't be able to make proper use of a full potential of the mind, the full resources of the mind. That's why great karma yogis, when they work hard to achieve great things, they display enormous powers of determination, enormous powers of resources. You may find this not only in karma yogis, also in great conquerors like Napoleon, Alexander the Great. All you find this. You may ask the question, they are not karma yogis. They had big ambitions. Adolf Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin, all these people. They had tremendous powers of mind, strong determination. That is true. But then they didn't have the evenness of mind. They brought out only the crude potential resources of their mind. They achieved great things, but those very great things had hidden the real cause of their own downfall. That is the difference. The difference between a karma yogi who works with perfect equanimity of mind, making full use of his inner resources, with a spiritual attitude, and another person, maybe people whom you call the scourges of humanity, Genghis Khan, all these people. If you read their history, tremendous powers of mind, iron determination. But that iron determination, that strong will also really were hiding the seed of their own downfall. That is the main difference. We call Achilles' heel. But in the case of great karma yogis, you may call Lincoln. Well, the example that I can draw from American history comparable to Gandhi in a way is Lincoln, because both were politicians. And both acted in two different ways. One fought a war, the other was totally against fighting. But you find the ideal of working for the country, working for others, working for a noble cause, through war in the case of Lincoln, and through pacifism in the case of Gandhi. You can find they brought out their own hidden inner resources. So yoga, karma yoga, is not something that we practice only in a temple or a church. It is an ideal that we practice in our everyday activity, whether you are a professor or a politician or a teacher or a factory worker. In all these areas, we can practice this karma yoga. Then there is another aspect that's also important. People who practice great freedom from weakness, those who were blessed with great powers of determination, great intelligence, frequently, as I mentioned earlier, they had within their own resources the hidden seed of their own downfall. I give the example. There is an ancient statement in Sanskrit. The statement is, Yepuman atimedhavi chaturnam ekamasnude alpayu anapatyowa daridra paditopiva. The meaning of this verse is something very interesting. Atimedhavi means a great genius in any area of a person who has achieved great things in life. But not as a karma yogi, with great ambition, with a great drive, great push, with a strong selfish motive, who may have perhaps, it is possible that those persons are not necessarily bad. You be a great military general, a great musician, a great painter, a great writer, a great businessman. All of them share one important characteristic: the ability to focus all their resources on one single area, which helped them to become extraordinarily successful in their own chosen profession, maybe business, industry, military strategies. And so you find Napoleon's powers of concentration are legendary. But this verse tells you they are extraordinarily gifted people. Atimethavi. Metha means great intellectual power. The ability to focus all your intellectual resources on one point so that you will be able to achieve great things. That is the meaning of Atimethavi. But the point is, if they do not have a spiritual aspect in their life, if they don't follow a spiritual ideal, like this freedom from selfishness, this karma yoga ideal, the ability to look at success and failure, pain and pleasure, good and bad, for them, of course, with the same equanimity of mind. The ability to look upon success and failure with the same equanimity of mind, which is possible when you do whatever you are doing as a karma yogi. Now, if they don't do that, you know what happens? There will be one Achilles heel, one serious problem. Because extraordinary concentration of resources on one area frequently leads to a slight imbalance of the personality. Sometimes they become eccentrics, sometimes they become psychopaths with great resources. Often they become scourges of humanity. So Lord Krishna says all great gifts of mind and intellect should have another important aspect, that is a spiritual ideal, like unselfishness, freedom from selfish motives, the ability to do our duty with a sense of sanctity and sacredness. As you gave the example of Gandhi himself, even if he was dying, he was not crying. He chanted the name of the deity, the God whom he prayed all his lifetime. And with that he passed away. Not a very small thing to achieve. So these are examples of the benefits of practicing karma yoga, even in the lives of extraordinary people. In the ordinary life situations, it helps us to go ahead with our duties and responsibilities, with our normal family or social obligations, with a sense of sanctity. And once we do that, the reward is given by our own mind. Our mind remains totally free from anxiety and worry. When we bring this non-attachment, what we call the unselfishness element into our duties and obligations. So Lord Krishna says, he tells his disciple, you take refuge in this spiritual ideal. So one of the great Sanskrit commentators, his name is Venkatanatha, he actually belongs to the Sri Vaishnava tradition, Ramanuja tradition. This is the academic aspect. He says, Buddhi yoga buddhi purvokta samatta buddhi tad yukto yoga buddhi yoga tad abekshaya kamya karma ati nicham. Says, the point is this: the ability to do our work with a sense of perfect equanimity, rooted in total unselfishness, is yoga. On the other hand, those who go about doing their duties, working ceaselessly with a strong motive, what happens? It is nicham. It becomes self-defeatist, because we may work very hard, lot of efficiency, lot of success, but we have to depend upon sleeping pills to get 4 hours of sleep. So yoga, karma yoga, helps us to combine efficiency in action, success in secular pursuits, at the same time perfect freedom from anxiety and worry, which are very often unavoidable in this modern life of extreme competition. So one may succeed in business and industry, making lots of money, lots of wealth, achieving great things, but still may not feel that inner contentment within. Very often we don't express it, a feeling of want, a feeling of incompleteness within. That's because we have done a lot of great things, achieved a lot of great things, but our own mind is looking for something. There is no contentment, there is success. Success without inner contentment is really not success. Maybe a person may be very rich and efficient and successful, but life to be fully successful, we need something more, that is inner contentment, inner serenity. And that is possible when we practice karma as karma yoga. When we bring the yoga element into whatever we are doing, our duties and obligations, that element of freedom from selfish motive, freedom from anxiety, and freedom from worry. It continues, buddhi yukto jahadiha ube sukradushkude tasma yoga yujyasu yoga karmasu kausalam. Here's a very interesting ideal is brought out in this 50th verse. So, buddhi yukto jahadiha ube sukradushkude. You should have this special spiritual perspective and attitude which is based on this evenness of mind, even while being engaged in all duties and obligations, mind remaining calm and quiet, serene and perfectly contented. When we do like this, it takes us to freedom and it helps us to go beyond success and failure, pain and pleasure. This is actually the real dexterity of work. So kaushala, kaushala means, kusalasya bhavaha means real efficiency. What is the real efficiency in work? I already hinted just now. On the one hand, we have one person, that is to give an example, working very hard, very successful, very lot of drive and enthusiasm, but then mind is not very happy, suffering from extreme anxiety and worry and concerns. On the other hand, another person who works with the same efficiency, with the same drive and enthusiasm, but totally free from anxiety. But Lord Krishna gives the pictures of these two types of persons in another context. Saktaha karmani avidvamso yatha kurvanti bharata kuryan vidwan tatha asaktaha chigushuhu lokasangraham. That's comes later. We are going to discuss the subject. It's in the 3rd chapter. Two types of people are mentioned here. On the one hand, we have the ordinary people. Lot of worry, sakta, a lot of attachment, obsession, obsessed with the result. But the slightest setback and reverse can totally bring a kind of inner imbalance. I mentioned earlier that those who work without selfish motive, with total efficiency but no selfish motive, they are able to tap on their own inner resources. Every reverse, every setback, every problem brings in a new spiritual or psychological weapon, which means you are able to go deeper and deeper into your own mental system, and you are able to bring to the surface more and more of the hidden potentials which are already present within you. Strong determination, higher ideals, etc. When we do not have any selfish motive. If a selfish motive, the door opening to this infinite reservoir of inner resources is blocked. When we are free from selfish motive, when we are totally free from extreme obsession for success, then we are doomed to be disappointed at the slightest failure, or maybe if we don't get the results that we expect. So once we get attached and was driven with a selfish motive, our ability to go deeper into our own mind and make use of our own unutilized resources is gone. The moment we are free from selfish motives, this door is wide open, more determination, more ideas, because our own mind contains at its hidden levels a lot of new ideas, a lot of potential, a lot of resources that we are not often able to make use of. That's the idea behind here. So a person who is sakta, who is obsessed, he is successful, but within the success there is a seed of failure. Why? Because he is not able to make use of his own success. He is not able to enjoy his success. Lots of money, but anxiety and worry, hypertension, diabetes, and what's the use of that kind of success? Plenty of money in the bank, but it's only a figure, only a name in the computer screen, that's all. You can't make any use of it. It's just a figure, which you can't make use of it. You can't enjoy it. Because in the process, in the pursuit of success, we have forgotten something much more important. That is saktaha karmanya vidvamso. They are ignorant people who work like this. Then Lord Krishna says, Kuryan vidvan tatha asaktaha. Vidwan means a wise person. A person with this spiritual wisdom, who can practice freedom from anxiety and freedom from worry, freedom from obsessive attachment to results. A person who is free from all this, he displays the same enthusiasm, the same efficiency, the same drive and skill, but he is totally free from these problems of anxiety, worry, because he is practicing unselfishness. So he is totally free from attachment, too much of obsessive attachment to something, to success, to enjoyments. So he has the same enthusiasm. He may be more enthusiastic. Actually, when you are not too much obsessed with success, with the ideal of success, you can work more efficiently. Because when we work hard, with a lot of anxiety, a lot of our power of concentration may be lost. Because anxiety and worry about the results of our actions, too much of concern, can distract the mind and take away a lot of our mental focus. So to that extent, the quality of work will suffer. On the other hand, when we are not attached too much to these selfish results, then what happens? All the resources of the mind can be utilized in what we are doing. That work becomes more effective. So that's what is mentioned here. That ability to work without selfish motive is real dexterity of the mind. Karma sukha kausala means, so mentioned here, dexterity of mind. So the great philosopher Shankaracharya, who is responsible for making Bhagavad Gita as a world universal classic. He was the one who first wrote a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. If he had not written this commentary, he won't be reading Gita today. So he has something very important to say in this context. He says, there's one word, Sanskrit word used here in this 50th verse, iha. Iha literally means here. And he says, Shankaracharya says, asmin loge means in this world. In this life itself. So this freedom from anxiety, this spiritual quality is not something that should come from heaven. It can be practiced here in this life, in everyday life situation. He says, Sarva Swadharma Keshu Karmasu Artamana Seya Siddhya Siddhyoko Samatya Buddhihi Ishwararpita Chetastaya tat kaushalam kushala bhavaka tat hi kaushalam yat bandhana subhavani api karmani samatta buddhya subhava nivartande. This is a Sanskrit commentary which I am reading, but I shall explain. You won't miss anything even if you don't bother about this statement, but it's very important. This ancient commentator who lived in 8th century, he says, this karma yoga is swadharma keshu karmasu. Means whatever work we are doing, if you are a doctor, your swadharma is the work of a doctor. A work that has come to you by your own attitude, your own fitness, your own preparation, something that you didn't go after. If you are a doctor, you know what is your job. If you are a professor, you know your job. So whatever may be the work you are doing, this karma yoga can be practiced every day, every moment. And once we do that, what happens is mind becomes calm and quiet. We should not take it just as a lesson in psychological counseling. It is a great spiritual ideal. That's why this equanimity of mind, if a person believes in God, then every action can be done as an offering to God. Offering to God is not something that we do once a week. It is not something that we do in the morning and evening when we go to a temple or a church or a synagogue. But he says, Shankaracharya says, this samatta buddhi ishwararpita chedastaya tat kausalam. So whatever we do, if we do it as an offering to God, it is simple for those who believe in God. Those who do not believe in God, the agnostics also can practice this. Agnostics also can practice karma yoga. Belief in a God, in a monotheistic God, is not a necessary condition for the practice of karma yoga. And that's a very important point to remember. Two examples I can place before you. One is Gandhi himself, the other is Buddha. Buddha, who did not believe in a creator God, who was an agnostic, is considered to be one of the archetypal karma yogis the world has ever produced. The one who employed this ideal of total freedom from selfish motive in everything he did, every moment in his life. Another example is I mentioned Gandhi himself. Gandhi was a very pious Hindu. And he wrote a commentary on the Gita, of course, small commentary. And he was a social reformer. He used to go to temples in India, not to worship there. In those days, in the 1930s and 20s, Gandhi used to go to places. And there was one incident where he went to a temple, and the purpose of that visit was to lead an agitation against Orthodox people to get permission for the entry of people who were considered to be outside the social structure. I mean, people belonging to lower castes were not allowed to go to certain temples in those days in 1930s. So Gandhi was not only a spiritual man, he was a social reformer. He led an agitation somewhere in South India. Now, he led this agitation for a long time. But he did not enter the temple. For days he stayed, he did not enter the temple. But for that he was not rejected by the society. So you find such people. They practice total freedom from selfishness, absolute dedication, but they did not practice the popular, the conventional piety or religiosity that we often associate with. So you should remember, Karma Yoga is not just a religious ideal. It's an ideal that everyone can practice in every kind of activity. As I mentioned earlier, Buddha, who did not reject God, but he did not confirm the existence of a monotheistic God. He was an agnostic. Many people mistakenly consider him as an atheist, but he was only an agnostic. So he himself is considered to be, in Indian context, as one of the greatest karma yogis. And he is considered to be an incarnation of God in popular Hindu tradition. So what I mean to say, this karma yoga ideal can be practiced every day, every minute, in every life situation that we normally go through. It is not just a spiritual idea. It is a spiritual idea. It's not necessarily a religious idea. It is a religious idea, but it's much more than that. It helps us to do even secular activities in a spiritual way, with a spiritual perspective. So, the 51st verse is Karmajam buddhi yuktahi phalam tiktva manishinaha janma bandha vinirmuktaha padam gacchandi anamayam. So, here the Lord Krishna says, great men and women who have practiced this equanimity of mind, evenness of mind, who totally abandoned their attachment, their desire for the fruits of their actions, still worked with all enthusiasm and efficiency. They freed forever from the fetters of birth, and they go beyond the duality. Now, this verse, to understand literally, we need a little background, in popular Hinduism and in Vedanta, they believe in law of karma and rebirth. So, if you go through these endless cycles of birth, life and death and rebirth again, following the path of the law of karma, it is not the highest, not the most desirable situation. One should always strive to go beyond and get beyond this cyclic rotation, transmigration from one life to another life. So, here Lord Krishna says, those who practice this karma yoga with equanimity of mind, giving up all selfish motive and attachment to the consequences of their actions, they get freedom from this transmigratory cycle. The 51st verse is Yada te moha kalilam buddhir vyatidarishyati tada gantasi nirvedam sodavyasya sudasya cha. And now here Lord Krishna says, the teacher says, when your intellect goes beyond this obsession for the results, suffering disappointment, going through disappointment when the results are not up to the expectation, and getting over-jubilant when the results are beyond expectation. This kind of attachment to pain and pleasure, success and failure in your life. Then what happens, then you really get transcendental wisdom. The 53rd verse is very important. After that, we are actually entering one of the most significant sections of this text, 54th verse up to 72nd verse. There's a long discussion of the essential characteristics of a spiritually enlightened person. I already mentioned earlier, I was quoting from Dhammapada. In the Dhammapada, which is one of the most important texts for Buddhists in the Hinayana tradition, Lord Buddha gives a list of the characteristics of a spiritually enlightened person. There is close similarity between these verses and the verses in the Dhammapada, which of course is written not in Sanskrit but in Pali, which is actually a corrupted form of Sanskrit, which is popularly spoken by people, and that is the language in which Buddha's teachings were originally written in the 5th century BC. The 53rd verse is Sudhi Vipradibannade Yadastya Asiri Nischala Samadhu Achala Buddhi Tada Yogam Avapsyasi. Lord Krishna says, when your intellect, there is one hidden possibility is pointed out here. When your mind gets tossed about conflicts, desires, anxieties, worries, and so on, what happens is, very often it goes away from it, you lose your awareness of the mind. So, when your intellect, which is normally tossed about by the conflict of opinions, has become completely free from these fluctuations by becoming firmly established in the Atman, then you realize Atman. Here, how our mind gets tossed about, how our mind frequently gets worried, concerned, how it loses its equanimity and evenness are discussed here. How does our mind get disturbed? So, Gita actually implying an important teaching from the Yoga Sutra which we are discussing for almost 3 years. In the Patanjali's yoga system, not the physical yoga but yoga psychology, mind is analyzed according to its various thought currents. So Patanjali says, Patanjali means Vyasa, who wrote a commentary on Patanjali Yoga Sutra, analyzes the mind based on the thought currents going on within the mental system. The 5 levels of mind are mentioned: Kshipta, Mudha, Vikshipta, Ekagra, Niruddha. So the first state of mind, it is not normal, a kind of total restlessness, total inability to focus on anything. The second state of mind is total confusion and absolutely in a state of inertness. So these are 2 types of abnormal minds mentioned in the yoga system. That's not what we are concerned. The third state of mind is mentioned here. Vikshipta. This is an example is given. Suppose you listen to a lecture, or you go to a library, you read a wonderful book, or you may go to a museum, or suppose we listen to a wonderful lecture, read a book, we get a great teaching, we get a great idea, and we want to practice it. And then when we try to practice, our mind doesn't cooperate. Very often people find this conflict. We are not able to do what we want to do. There's a conflict between what we want to do and what our mind actually permits us to do. It is not due to lack of earnestness, enthusiasm, or sincerity. Our accumulated tendencies and impressions frequently drive the mind the opposite direction in spite of our best efforts to do. Suppose you take it as a tomorrow onwards, I shall pray every day 6 o'clock in the morning. But tomorrow morning when we try to practice that, if our mind is not ready, mind itself may play a trick. It may postpone. Or tomorrow, today I have some other appointments, I shall do it tomorrow, next day. So postponement, procrastination, or inner conflicts can frequently create mental blocks in spite of our best and sincerest efforts to do certain noble good things. This is experienced by all normal spiritual seekers. If we can do what we want to do, a lot of problems that we are facing can be resolved quickly. But we are not able to do. Our mind will not permit us to do what actually we want to do. So does it mean that mind has 2 sections, good and bad? No. On the one hand, the mind is looking for something higher. On the other hand, the other part of the mind, which is accustomed to certain things, will create a mental block. So Patanjali's system analyzes human mind according to samskaras and vrittis and divides into 5 categories. The first 2 categories are linked to abnormal states of human mind, which I am not going to discuss, naming the kshipta and mudha. Vikshipta is the vikshipta state of the mind, disturbed, or mind which functions like a pendulum. From one end of the pendulum, the mind goes to the other end. On the one hand, we are extremely enthusiastic, we are happy, we feel great sense of inner serenity, contentment, satisfaction. But after some time, it has gone to some other level. And again, this conflict between what we actually want to do and what our mind okays, allows us to do. So that state of mind is called the vikshipta state. So Lord Krishna says, when you are no more tossed about by these conflicting turns of mind, thought currents of the mind, like a pendulum moving one end to the other end, it doesn't stay in the middle. So when you are no more tossed about by these conflicting thought currents of the mind, then you should know, you can know that you have reached a state of perfect concentration, and that is the state of samadhi. That is the state of yoga. So the last and most advanced states of yoga is, one is ekagra, which is spiritually advanced state. Niruddha is the mystical state, which we are not concerned right now. Okay, now in the 55th verse, Arjuna is asking question. And the question is, Siddha prajnasya ka bhasha, samadhistasya keshiva, siddhadi kim prabhashida, kim asida, vrajeda kim. The question is very interesting. He says, how does a spiritually enlightened person with a steady wisdom, who has this evenness of mind, how does he walk? How does he sit? How does he speak? So this is the question. So actually Arjuna is not interested in analyzing the posture of a spiritually enlightened person's movements. It is a symbolic question that he is putting. How does a spiritually enlightened person interact with his everyday life situations? Because sitting, speaking, walking, talking, all these are unavoidable activities that we all go through. So, what should be our attitude? What will be our attitude when we become spiritually enlightened? The real purpose of this question is very interesting. It goes much deeper. Shankaracharya, the great commentator, says Arjuna is not necessarily interested in the external postures or activities of a spiritually enlightened person, the way he walks, talks and moves and sits and so on. The real purpose of introducing this particular discussion in this text is very simple. If you can get an idea of the characteristics of a spiritually enlightened person, the way he interacts, the way he talks, the way he moves about in his everyday life situation, then you can also develop those qualities. Not artificial imitation. Well, but rather you can develop that way of interacting with people, that evenness of mind, that freedom from anxiety, the freedom from too much of worry and too much of obsession. Then you also will one day become a spiritually enlightened person. So characteristics can be actually naturalized. We can really imbibe, not imitate, imbibe those qualities. So this is possible when we read great books, when we read biographies of great men and women, and if we just try to understand how they actually lived in this world, not how they meditated in the temple or a church. That's not a very interesting thing. Because how do they display their spirituality, their spiritual virtues in the ordinary activities that we all actually do and go through in our life. So that will be a very interesting discussion that we will begin in the next class. So the next class will not be the next Friday. We will not have a class next Friday, May 24th, because of preparations for Memorial Day program. The next class will be on Friday, May 31st at 7:30 p.m. I shall tell you a few more give you more details about the Memorial Day program. Before that, we have interaction. Okay. Those who are interested can ask questions. Can interaction.
Maharaj, when we interact with holy people, can you expound a little more on the difference between imbibing versus imitating the spiritual qualities?
When we imbibe, we are not practicing the external movements. We are trying to internalize and develop those characteristics in our own life, in our own mind, our own character. Imitation frequently can be not only useless but can be dangerous, because imitation blocks, it creates a stumbling block in our own spiritual path. In our path of developing those qualities in our real life, if we try to imitate, frequently it blocks the real path. So, through spiritual practice, through real practice of the mind, not just a physical level, and to be actually identified with those characteristics, internalization, real internalization, not external imitation at a physical level, but the spiritual level, if we develop those qualities. So, one way to do that is to constantly be connected to higher ideas. So, if we can keep our mind linked to higher spiritual ideas, then we may often think of those higher spiritual ideas in our everyday activity. Imitation is skin deep, it is external, it is superficial. It doesn't really benefit us. As I mentioned, it can be a negative problem. It can even prevent your real development. So, through practice of meditation and also constantly thinking of the limitations of the so-called success. So that's an important thing. If we can develop an awareness of the superficiality of the external enjoyments, then we will be able to look upon enjoyment not with so much of identification. Success and failure come and go. When we experience success, we should always remember the success can one day become failure. Continuous success in any activity in life is impossible. So once we remember the possibility of failure, once we remember that success is not a permanent phenomenon, it is impermanent, it is a changing phenomenon, then we won't be too overjoyed when success comes. And also when we go through the opposite of it, failure, we should remember failure also is not a permanent experience. One day we may fail, next day we may succeed. So too much of worry, too much of disappointment, too much of depression when we fail, and too much of enjoyment or jubilation when we succeed. When we understand the momentariness, the impermanence of both, then we are able to look upon them both with an equanimity of mind. So, A person who really tries to imbibe, he will not stop at a physical level. He will try to understand how this person who is displaying the spiritual qualities, how he developed, not only the result but also the means, the method that he employed in order to reach that level. That also we will try to practice. That's the meaning of imbibing in contrast to imitation. Then, if you don't have question, then I want to mention a few more details about the Ulema Memorial Program. So, we will have 3-day celebrations in Ulema, West Marin. It's one of our retreats. Most of you are familiar with that. So, it begins on 25th. And will be the main program will be on 27th. So on 25th Saturday and 26th Sunday, there will be discussions involving devotees, spiritual seekers, and also some monastics. 3 sessions, 2 sessions in the morning on Saturday, and 1 session in the morning on Sunday. So Saturday 25th will be 1 session in the morning from 10:30 to 12, another one from 3 to 4:30 in the afternoon. And on Sunday there will be 1 session of discussion from 10:15 to 11:45. Then there will be a play acted by our Sunday school students. And on 27th is our main program. On 27th we will have this Memorial Day. We will have a program. It begins about 10 o'clock in the morning. It will be over by 5 o'clock. All those who are present will be given snacks and lunch arrangements are made. There will be parking facilities also. There is enough parking facility for 400-500 cars there. And there will be discussions on spiritual topics. And also there will be interaction from the audience. So morning there will be 3 presentations on some interesting spiritual topics, and in the afternoon there will be interactions from the audience. There will be music, meditation, Vedic chanting. All these programs will be held. That is on 27th Monday, Memorial Day. So all of you are most welcome, and I would request you to be present for all these programs. That is 25th Saturday, 26th Sunday, and also 27th especially. Thank you. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.